Hey, before you start the podcast, the conversion email sequence masterclass registration is now open. This is the time to go grab your seat. This class does sell out, and I want you there with us. In this course, you are going to learn the 3 critical conversion sequences that you need to have set up and ready to go in your business. Your opt-in sequence, your promotion sequence. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you 2 different promotion ideas and sequences for you to use. And then the third one is when you're putting on any type of a live event or any kind of a training or a course, and how to really take that and convert it to the next thing. So that's all about increasing lifetime value. Would love to have you join us. Go get your seat right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/July save 200. That means it's going to save you $200 off the registration fee. If you want all the details of the masterclass, you'll find them on the website. If you go to yoursalesmaven.com, go to masterclasses and pick the conversion email sequence, you'll see all the details of everything you're going to get there. This is power packed. This is the class that everybody always comes back to me after I've taught it and begging for me to teach it again. I only teach it once a year, and this year is going to be extra special because I'm giving some added sequences. So I actually give you examples so that you've got examples to then write your own sequences. So by the end of the course, you should have your sequences done and ready to go. So I'd love to have you join. I'll see you there. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Do sales conversations make you feel awkward or pushy? It's time to ditch the outdated salesy strategies. Your guide, Nikki Roush, will show you how to combine kindness with selling skills to meet your prospects where they are, and in the process, how to up-level your influence and income. Learn how to earn business easily and effortlessly. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. Today's episode is part of our Mastering Excellence series. This is a concept that comes from my background in neuro-linguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. And once you understand the structure, you can then apply it to your own life or business to get similar results. Today's guest is Josh Coates. Now, if you haven't heard about Josh yet, you're in for a treat. He is a 2-time #1 best-selling author. He's a top 50 podcast host and the founder of the Push Coach Certification School for Life Coaches. He has trained over 40,000 people in his online trainings and specializes in mindset, leadership, and strategy. And as a student of mindset and founder of a life coach school, Josh will help you dig into beliefs that are holding you back in your sales and leadership. And I am so thrilled to have him here. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you. So I always like to give the audience a little bit of kind of background of how we got connected.
Yeah.
Because Josh and I just met, maybe kind of towards the end of last year.
Yeah, December-ish.
We have a mutual friend in common, Micah Folsom, and I adore her. And I feel like you've known her for a long time, longer than me.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Been a while. Yeah.
So Micah introduced us because Josh was putting together this amazing coaching program. He calls it his Inner Circle. And he brings in other coaches, not just him, to coach people that are going through his life certification program to make sure they also have the skill set, the business skill set to really build their life coaching program. How would you describe the Inner Circle? I guess I should really let you do that.
No, it's okay. You're doing a great job. I mean, the Inner Circle is just basically a combination. I sell my life coach certification by itself, but we decided to put together a program for people who already have businesses that want to get certified as a life coach, but one of the reasons they haven't invested is because it's like, well, man, I'm about to spend, close to $10,000 on this new certification, but I also have this other business that I want to grow. And I just knew that would always be kind of like something that would like keep them from taking that step. So I said, let's just give them both. Like, if you want to learn how to grow the business you already have and get certified at the same time, so I kind of made this killer deal. It was almost the same price.
Yeah.
as getting certified to also get 6 months with Nikki and Micah and some other people.
Yeah. So I got to be one of the coaches, and I think we're kind of just coming up at the end of this. It was like a 6 months, right? 6 months program.
Yeah, 6 months.
It was a raging deal for people, I think, because they got so much, and you brought in these outside experts. In addition to you, they got a lot from you. And then, I came in once a month and did a training for them, and, they great Facebook group, they can ask questions. And anyway, it's just been a real pleasure to get to know you, get to learn from you, but also get to be, have access to your amazing people that you attract into your business.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I have to also give a lot of credit to people like Micah, who have let me into their lives and their teams and things like that over the year. Really, they attract a lot of really good people. And then I'm just lucky enough to hop on and have fun. And then they're like, hey, I like you too. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Let's hang out. And so, a lot of my network building has really been connecting with powerful leaders who have great networks. So, I can never take too much credit for any of the network building. I'm more of a network tapper, if that makes sense. I connect with powerful leaders, and powerful leaders always is something that John Maxwell taught me. It's the law of the lid. If you attract a 2 out of 10, they don't really bring anybody with them. But if you can attract 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s, then all of a sudden they bring a whole group with them. So I got really good early on. Sorry for the random tangent.
No, I love this.
You said you were going to pull stuff out of me. Okay.
I want to.
You promised that. So I'm expecting, man. I got my, my subconscious is open and aware over here. But basically one of my marketing skills, I guess you will, is seeking out the 8s, 9s, and 10s very, very intentionally, because one, I just love working with high performers, love working with people who have already climbed the mountain and are kind of looking for that next thing or that next mountain. Leaders tend to kind of find a place where they're like, okay, I've crushed it and I'm doing awesome, but I still feel a lack of fulfillment because I know I have more to give the world. And those are the people that I love to jump in, because I'm I don't have to worry about challenging you. You can handle that. Know how, and you're literally seeking someone to give you that next challenge. So I kind of get to come in and be that person. And then just naturally, I'm on their podcast or speak on team calls, or they mention me on Instagram, and then all of their people come follow me. So if you attract 10s, there's a marketing hack for everybody. If you attract 10s, they bring a whole network with them, and you super hack network building.
Yeah. And you've done this amazing. I think I haven't looked at your Instagram recently. I follow you on Instagram, but I haven't actually looked at your stats, but you have 80,000 followers, or probably way more than that now, but
it's like 110, but we don't have to
110,
count.
excuse me. Oh my gosh. Minimize it. But I do also hear you talk a lot about on your podcast that you have, that you really built a 7-figure business with very few followers.
Yeah.
Is that, I think I've heard you talk about this.
So not 7, but definitely multi-6. I definitely had my first $400,000 year with 1,500 people on Instagram, and maybe 1,000 people on my page back when anybody cared about their page.
Yeah.
It was. I always tell people I built the income first, and then the following. And some of that was organically, but I also just want to be totally transparent. Some of that was not organic. Some of that was me hiring different services and stuff. But I think it's very, very, very important to understand that income does not follow a following, but a following will always follow income. So if you build the actual business first, meaning it's profit, followers are always looking for somebody that's moving forward and actually doing something, right? So when word gets around that you're doing some big stuff, the followers will start showing up. But I think most people do it the wrong way. If I just got followers, then we could make some profit. No, because if you don't know what to do with 1,000 followers, what do you need 2,000 for? If you don't know how to take 1,000 people and put them through a process to get them to become paying customers, what are you going to do with 1,000 more? Like, it doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah.
So if you got 1,000 people, figure out how to convert people, and then you'll make a lot of money, and 1,000 more people will come along and say, how'd you do that? Like, can you help me too? Like, I need help.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm very passionate about, because people get way too carried away with caring about that number. And to me, it's just like one of those extra things on the resume that doesn't really matter for my business strategy.
Yeah.
I just know that if you go look at my Instagram, it helps. Obviously, it helps people go, oh, this guy's legit.
He's legit. Yeah.
But I did a lot of legit stuff before it looked legit,
I will always rather make money than have a vanity matrix. That's me, though.
Yes, exactly.
I'd like revenue coming in the door and getting to work with my ideal clients versus vanity matrix any day of the week. So, okay, well, I've never heard anybody say it that way. So that was super powerful. Thank you for that. Already a good tip. We haven't really even gotten into what we're going to talk about today, which I'm super excited to dig into this topic with you, because obviously it's something that's very close to my heart. And it isn't something I have had a conversation on the podcast with another expert at this. So the topic we're going to talk about today is question-based selling, because Josh is so good at this. So we're going to follow the NLP process. I'm going to ask him some NLP questions around question-based selling and see what comes out. But I just know you guys are in for such a treat, because like I said, I follow him on Instagram. I read the stuff that he puts out. He's got some great stuff out there. So here's my first question for you, sir. If I was to stand in for you for a day, so imagine I get to take on and be Josh for a day.
Yeah.
How would I have to think in order to show up in a conversation from this place of question-based selling as I'm going into a conversation with a prospective client?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I love this process. I'm like a little nervous over here, because
don't be.
But I like it. No, it's a good nervous. It's like, what are we gonna find out today? Because I truly believe in this process of life coaching, which is question asking.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of people don't really understand. A lot of people call themselves coaches, but true coaching is the art of using questions to draw things out of other people. It's not cheerleading. It's not, hey, you got this. That's not coaching. That's just like being a good human, which you should all be. But coaching is a more scientific, artistic approach to something. And so life coaching taught it to me. And I've just been very, very, very intentional to take everything it taught me into all of the other stuff that I'm doing. Because it's like, if I can ask you enough questions to figure out what your why is, what your goal is, what you actually want versus what you said you wanted, if I can do that, why wouldn't it also work in a sales process? Like what I do on a one-on-one coaching call to get you to go from I'm not motivated to I'm motivated seems like the same process it would take to go from I don't know if I want to buy to I do want to buy. So I would say like the first thing you would have to, and this is a life, I don't want to make it sound like I invented any of this. I've just been smart enough to like actually use it. The first thing you would have to do is have like their true life coaching has no agenda in mind. You don't actually have a path that you need them to go down. And that changes sales altogether, because most sales is like, okay, I need them to get to this place. So what are the questions I ask to get them? And so like I taught on a workshop last night, you know, back when I worked in retail, people would be like, okay, so here's how you close the sale. If somebody's got something and they really like it, would that be cash or credit? When in the world has that ever made you go, I wasn't going to spend the money on these jeans, but now because you said it that way, yes, please, I'll be paying with credit. Like, there are these things that kind of like make you feel backed into a corner. And one of my favorite quotes from Zig Ziglar says, if you don't leave a doorway out, people will look for one. So like,
oh my gosh, that's a great quote.
Isn't that so good?
I don't think I've ever heard that Zig Ziglar quote. I love quotes. That's a good one. Will you say it one more time?
Yes. If you don't leave a back door out, people will look for one.
Amen.
So any question, and this is where people get questions wrong, because I do feel like in like more traditional corporate sales, they try to be like smart and clever with questions, but they do it in such a like arrogant, pompous way that it's like, what is the question I can ask you that gives you no choice but to do what I want you to do? That's terrible sales. That's manipulation.
Oh, that makes my stomach hurt. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, like good coaching. If I'm on a one-on-one call with someone and they say, hey, Josh, I'm struggling with fill in the blank with whatever that is, sales, motivation, leadership. Yeah. My job as a life coach is to ask curious questions to try to get down to the bottom of the matter. And I'm not allowed to have a destination in mind, or it's no longer coaching. It's now really mentoring using manipulative questions. Mm-hmm. So if you were to sit in this chair over here and go into the day and you were going to like go have conversations with my people, the number one thing you'd have to do is say, I do not have a chosen destination for them. I'm going to ask questions that's going to help them. The reality is, if I did my job via my webinar last night, via my social media posts, via my emails, they already believe that 626 is the best program for them. Mm-hmm. They're just currently wrestling with some ideas of, well, let's pick apart a few of those words. One, is it really the best program? Because there's a lot of other things out there. Mm-hmm. And is it really the best program for me? Because I have a lot of limiting beliefs around me. Mm-hmm. So if I can ask questions with no agenda in mind, it usually turns into like a mini coaching session that helps them to see that they really are worthy of and capable of the success that they want. And therefore the 626 program can work for them. So they will pay.
Yeah. I love this. I get frustrated sometimes when I hear people that will say, oh, I have this call with a prospective client, and they go and they do all this crazy research and they prep all these, like, I'm going to say this and I'm going to lay out this offer. And it's like, you haven't even talked to them yet. You don't even know what's important to them. And if you show up with all this information, you're essentially going to word vomit all over people. And you're going to miss how to earn their business because you've left no room to be curious.
Exactly.
I love that you said this no agenda in mind. Love it.
One of the things that I tell my life coaches over and over and over, and it's so hard because every call I have to say it 3 times.
Yeah.
Because kind of like what you were just saying, the same thing happens when we go into creating the name of our offer, the curriculum for our offer, like anytime we're putting together something new specifically, but if you already have something put together, it's okay. We can tear it down and make it better. Because if you didn't first go to your audience and specifically ask them, what are you wanting to learn? What do you need from a program? What are the results you really, really want? If you didn't build out all of the sales copy, all of the structure and curriculum around the things they said they wanted and needed, you're just sitting around with a cup of coffee pretending that you're freaking Einstein and know, well, let's say maybe if I said, I don't know, ooh, that's a good one. Oh, I got some good stuff here, blah, blah, blah. And it's really just this like arrogant process that you're trying to figure out in your own head what would make someone else sign up. And you have no idea because you're not in their head.
Yeah.
So like, even when I'm putting together the curriculum, it's not that I'm going to change what I'm teaching. It's that I'm going to figure out how what they're saying bridges to what I'm teaching. So if someone says, I just really want to know, what do you even say in the DMs to people? I'll turn that into like I call it a cocaine promise. I know that's like a little dramatic, but I do dramatic.
What's a cocaine promise?
A cocaine promise is when you take what the customer says they want,
yeah,
and you turn it into something that sounds like its own program all by itself. So, because really, if you think about it, every single module in your course is a standalone program if you sold it that way, right?
Yeah, of course.
So like if someone says, and this actually happened when I put together my 626, someone said, I just want to know, what in the world do you even say in the DMs?
Yeah.
So I take that and I ask, why are they saying that? They obviously don't care what I say in the DMs. They care what it is I say that gets me to make sales. They don't want to just talk in the DMs. They want to make sales. So I turned that into a cocaine promise that says my exact scripts for how I close sales like crazy in the DMs. So
love that. Okay.
If I have enough people tell me they really want to know what I say in the DMs, okay, and this is what I do, Nikki, I poll 5 or 6 people and I get exact answers. And I say, what are the answers that reoccurred the most? Mm-hmm. Those have to be the first 2 or 3 things that every single person sees about this group, because that is what I'd call global listening, meaning if multiple people have the problem, probably everybody has the problem. So you kind of have to do this little market research where you start putting together these things. And then when someone says, hey, dude, like, what's that 626 program all about? I'm like, well, first, I always ask. I give a little like elevator thing. And I'm like, would it be okay if I just send over the curriculum? Would that be all right? And they say, yes, absolutely. I copy and paste my cocaine promises that are literally the words of everybody else's wants, needs, and desires. And they read it and they go, like literally half of the responses say, this sounds too good to be true. I'm like, well, that's what I was hoping for, right? Because that means it got your attention, right? And it's not like a negative thing where it's like, oh, that sounds like a scam. It's just like how could someone have possibly solved every single problem that I have in one program? Like, well, that's why I built the program. I didn't build it to solve a problem. I built it to solve all of your problems. That's why it's here. So that's one of the things that I do. And I know I went off on a long tangent, Nikki. You're going to notice that I do that a lot. I'll try to shut up and let you stick to your structure.
No, well, I think, so I just want to comment for the listener that Josh just gave you a little bit of his structure. And one of the structure pieces that he gave is that he looks for commonalities, this global, what you called it global listening. And from there, he's taking that structure. So this is his structure of how he builds a structure, right? Is he looks for this global listening. He's asking really smart questions. He's looking to take what the answer is and put some meaning behind it. And then he's naming programs based on that gets people going, that's my exact problem. That's exactly what I want. And of course it sounds too good to be true because it can't be that easy, but you're going, no, it's that easy. I've done it. This is what I've built for you. I love that so much. Okay. So I'm going to ask this question anyway. You may feel like you've already answered it. It's totally fine. But what specifically would I have to do to behave like you?
Yeah. So, I mean, that would obviously be the number one thing, is to ask a lot of people, a lot of questions. The global listening is huge, Nikki. All of the programs that I've ever created came from one-on-one calls where it is a little tricky. I do it naturally, kind of like the thing you were talking about literally before we hit record,
unconscious
right?
Competence.
Yeah. My unconscious competence is that I have the ability to be 100% present with the person that I'm talking to help them solve their problem, while also somewhere in the back of my head collecting these things that I call Josh statistics. So I'll literally... I will say this on calls sometimes. I'll be like, this isn't real science, but based on Josh statistics, 80% of you struggle with this. Yeah. And that's because I've talked to enough people that over time, you just hear so many repeat answers that's where the global listening comes in. You pay really good attention. And if you do enough one-on-ones or I do less one-on-ones now. Now I do a lot more like inbox polling with people, because it's a little bit of a time hack. However, if you are like me and Nikki, you can get paid for your one-on-one time, in which case you are literally getting paid to do market research. That's the beauty of being a coach, right? You can make thousands of dollars to help someone solve a problem while also finding out what everyone else is writing in their journal. So the thing is to always be realizing, like, this problem that this person is having, if it's making them cry, there's a whole lot of other people who have this same problem and are also crying about it. And this is where life coaching comes in. It's one thing to say, and Nikki, you probably know this, but for those of you listening who aren't, like trained in the art of life coaching, I always tell people, when I ask someone, what are you struggling with? The first thing that comes out of their mouth is the story they made up about what they're actually struggling with. So I have to dig 2 or 3 layers deeper to find out what it really is. Now, when I find that thing that's 2 or 3 levels deeper, if I can now know the path, when someone says they struggle with this, it means they actually have this internal issue. And now I have a key that can unlock the door of every other person on the planet that says they have this issue, but really has this internal issue, because the rest of the world who isn't trained in this is just speaking to this external issue over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Oh, you want to get motivated? Yeah, I'll help you get motivated. Yeah, motivated. And it's like, on one hand, that is part of the thing that gets their attention, but only if you know how to go 2 or 3 levels deeper. When you say, are you struggling with motivation? I have found that many people that struggle with motivation are actually struggling with self-worth. And then that person goes, oh God, you got me. And that's when people start saying things like, are you literally reading my journal? Do you have cameras in my house? When you start hearing things like that, that's when you have people at the point of realizing you are the person who actually understands their problem. And if you are that person, just on my chiropractor, got x-rays done recently at the chiropractor. It's the 3rd time I've had x-rays done on my back since I injured it 2 years ago. He is the first person. He pulls up the x-ray. He goes, hey, bro, has anyone ever told you have a deformed back? I was like, what? No one's ever told me that. He said, there's these shock absorbers that are supposed to be built in through the spine, all the way up. Yeah. And this bottom right section, I can't tell you exactly, but it looked like it's probably a couple inches worth on the paper. He said, this bottom section right here on your right side, no shock absorbers at all. I've had lower back issues. I detailed cars for 10 years when I was younger. Messed up my back pretty bad. And even though I'm a really healthy, work out every single day kind of a person, I still about once a month randomly tweak that little spot in my back, have to take 3 or 4 days off. And no one's ever told me this. So at that point, I'm like, bro, do I have to give you my house, my car? What do you charge? Take it, because you found a problem that is deeper. Everyone else tried to solve with surface level stuff. Right? When you were able to go on a deep dive of what's really wrong with me, now all of a sudden I'll pay you $1 million because you just set me free. Because how could I possibly fix something if I don't know what it is? But the second you show me what it really is, now it gives me hope that there is a fix. I've just been doing it the wrong way this whole time.
Okay, so using your chiropractor example, I'm going to build off this, maybe we'll see, is that he's asking the right questions. So he's not going in with an agenda going well, if you're coming in with lower back pain, I probably just need to do a couple adjustments and you'll be off and on your way. He takes the time to get the x-ray, right? So in a sales conversation, you take the time to understand what's really going on for the person using your expertise, but then you get curious, right? Why has this been a problem for so long for this person? And what hasn't been commented on yet? What hasn't been brought to the forefront that we can examine and then do something with? And so in your case, it's this hey, you've got this, part of your back that's kind of missing the piece. This could be the problem. And then of course you're, as the client going thank you. And you're my chiropractor for life because you just found something that nobody else has been able to find. So in the sales conversation, this idea of really showing up from, I think, a curious place and also bringing your expertise to the conversation, right? You're not just randomly, obviously you have an extensive background in life coaching. You've built a whole certification program from it. And I've heard you talk about that you spent years, getting your own certification. This is not Josh took a 3-hour course and then decided he's a life coach, right? That's not what it is. So you're still bringing all of who you are and your expertise to the party.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, like when you do find that root issue, that's when the expertise can come out. Because that's when he's like, by the way, based on my expertise, I know that when you are missing these shock absorbers, you're going to have lower back pain, which is obvious. But he's like, here's something you might not have known. One of your arms is probably stronger than the other. And I was like, you kidding me right now? I said, yeah, my left arm measures bigger than my right arm. And he said, and that's kind of weird since you're right-handed, isn't it? And I was like, it's super weird. I'm like, why is my left arm bigger than my right arm when I'm right-handed? It would make sense, right? So he started pointing out these other things that it's probably causing in my life, that kind of like your NLP thing. Like I was probably, I don't know which level, one of those middle levels.
So you're either consciously incompetent, like I know I have a problem, but I don't know what to do about it. Or consciously competent. Yeah. Consciously competent of like, I know this is an issue. I maybe know what to do about it, but I have to really put some effort behind it.
Yeah. I think it's probably the consciously incompetent, because I'm over here because also like one of my legs is shorter by like half an inch, always has been. One of my arms is bigger than the other. And I'm just like, I just got a weird body, guys. I just messed up over here. No wonder I have back issues. No wonder, you know what I mean? Like to me, and that's the thing, to me, I was looking at it from the outside in. No wonder I have back issues. One of my arms is bigger than the other. One of my legs is shorter than the other. But the reality was like, no wonder you have arm and leg deformities. You have a deformed back. And that is the root that's causing all of these things. So going back to what we said about followers, a lot of people look from the outside to try to fix things that aren't working on the inside. And it's like, if you would go down to the root, you could fix that. Then a lot of the outside stuff would work itself out.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to comment on this because we brought it into the room, but it was actually something we did before we started recording. So if you guys are like, why are they talking about consciously competent and incompetent? So I'm just going to, so there are 4 levels of competency. You may have heard me talk about this on the podcast before. I know my clients hear me talk about it a lot. So the lowest level of competency is being unconsciously incompetent. These are the things that I can't tell you what mine are. You probably can't tell me what yours are because we have no awareness of it. And so that's that base level. And then when you move up a level, you become consciously incompetent. These are the things that you're like, I have no idea about this, but I'm aware that this isn't something I know how to do. Like, I don't necessarily know how to build a bridge. Not even like, maybe I could find it on Google, but probably it's above me. I can't solve a bunch of deep math problems. Like, I'm consciously incompetent in these areas. Then you move up a level and yeah. So Josh says, I don't know what I don't know. Exactly. Like, we don't know what we don't know. This is that unconscious incompetence, and then conscious incompetence. Next level is conscious competence. These are the things that you probably have to think about them a little bit. It's not the stuff that just comes naturally to you. You can do it, but it isn't necessarily like that sweet spot. And then unconscious competence. I'm like mixing these up. Unconscious
Sorry, I interrupted
competence.
You
no, you're totally perfect. Those are the things that come so naturally to you, or they appear to become naturally to you. And frankly, when I'm picking people to come on the Mastering Excellence series, I am looking for people that I see areas where they're probably unconsciously competent. It's just who they are and how they show up in the room. But I know from my background in NLP that there is a structure to their excellence. So this is why I'm asking these very NLP questions. So that's why we keep referencing back to this, because I was talking to Josh about this before we hit record. And I find that the best clients for me oftentimes are people who are consciously incompetent. They have a realization that they don't know something, and they need to know something in order to achieve something in their life. That's when they start seeking help, right? Like when I become consciously incompetent and realize that my life will be better when I get some skill set around it. And many of my clients that are like in the Sales Maven Society, a lot of them, I would say, have reached a level of conscious competence. They stick around because they continue to learn things, but over a period of time, things start to just absorb. And then if you ask them, how do you know how to do this? They're probably not going to say, oh, I learned this from Nikki. They're going to go, doesn't everybody know how to do it? Right? Because it's just become who they are. So I just wanted to comment on that.
And I love that. And I realized as you were explaining it this time that John Maxwell actually does teach this process, but in his John Maxwell way, he makes it into elementary words. So he says, I don't know what I don't know. I know what I don't know. And then it's like, so it's like, I can't remember the whole process, but like basically he describes this many times, but like like he always does, which is one of the reasons I like love him. He takes all the smart words out because I hear big words. I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. Big words. I'm going to get lost. So it's like, but it's really cool. And it's a beautiful thing to understand, right? Because it's like, if you don't know what you don't know, you're literally a slave. And that's what I always kind of tell people about their belief system. If you literally don't know how or where or why these beliefs even showed up in your life that you're struggling with, if you don't, first of all, just get educated about how your belief system works, you kind of, in a sense, are a slave to your past environments, which is very unfair. But unfortunately, just society hasn't worked any of this into education at all. So on one hand, it's unfair, so it's not your fault. But on another hand, the second you figure it out, like, we need to do something about it.
Yeah, it's sometimes I'll teach something and I'll say to people, like, I'm gonna share something with you, but it's one of those things that once you know it, you can't unknow it. Right. So you decide whether or not
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, you want to go forward with this, because you can claim like, I didn't know, but once you know, you can't go like, oh, I guess I got to change, or I got to make some effort here. Absolutely. All right. I know we're getting kind of close to the hour. So I want to ask you one more question. Then we're going to jump into a little bit more, like, get to know Josh a little bit.
Cool.
So when you're showing up from this place of question-based selling in a conversation with somebody, how do you know once you've accomplished that task? Like, I've hit it, I've got what I need. Like, what are the cues for you? And then what do you do next?
Well, you've nailed it on the head when they finally figure out what their real problem is. So like, when someone comes to you and they say, hey, I'm struggling with, which by the way, like, hopefully most of you know this. If you listen to Nikki, you definitely know this. When someone comes to you, says, hey, like, I'm looking for help, I've struggling, blah, 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 blah. The first question to ask in any life coaching call, which now I hope that you're now seeing your sales process is a life coaching call. For me, the very first question is always, can you tell me more about that? Like, I'll lead with a little bit of empathy, of course, be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that you're struggling with that. Can you tell me more? Because the more someone talks, they like unconsciously go to deeper levels of the actual issue. So like when they first say it, it's in a very headspace. So it's very emotional. So we're not really dealing with any of the facts at all. We're just dealing with their current feelings about the facts. And if I can get them to keep talking, they eventually will get either down into like a deeper level of their story, which I can hear is kind of like what I would call like their trigger point. Like, this is the thing that is actually creating this trigger in your life, or this set of pattern or whatever. Or you eventually kind of like actually tell me the facts, which is unbiased opinion of what's really happening in your life or your business. And then we can actually use some questions to help them deal with that. So why do you think that is happening? Well, I honestly think that I am missing this or this. Like, people are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. We just haven't asked them enough questions to let them kind of dissect their own issue, because we wanted to dissect it, right? So eventually they tell you what is actually the problem. They tell you what they need to do to fix it. I'll literally ask them, like, what do you think you need to do to fix that? And in that process, they will tell me, well, I guess I need to learn how to boom, 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 and boom. Oh, well, now we're in a really good spot, because you just told me that the things that are in my program are the things you need to learn. So if I would have gone to the program 3 questions ago, it would have been like, I say it like this: if you have enough hype and enough excitement and enough enthusiasm and enough charisma you can still make some sales, right? It's like, well, it's just the best program ever. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be ridiculous. And some people who just love you to death will be like, okay, cool. Like, let's try it. But even those people are kind of like jumping in blind, right? But if you tell me these are the things that would solve my problem, now I have the approach of how to present my program. So to this person, I'm going to say, I totally get it. It sounds like you're really struggling with, let's just like make something up right now. It sounds like you're struggling with closing the sale. Here's what's really cool about my 626 program. I will literally walk you through all of the questions I use to close the sale. You will get everything I do. We'll practice it together. We'll work on it together. When we're done, you're going to feel so confident about closing the sale. So notice how I didn't go into anything else in the program. As far as they're concerned right now, this is a program on how to close the sale, which it is not, but it does include that. Does that make sense? And then they say, oh my God, that sounds like exactly what I need. And then I say, awesome. Would it be okay if I sent over the full curriculum? So I get them on you have the thing I need. And then I send them the whole list of cocaine promises. That's just like almost like a 30 more uppercuts to where they're just like, well, I don't even know what's happening right now, Josh, but this program apparently is the best thing in the world. Like, how do I get in? And then from there, everything is easy. But you do have to get them to the point of knowing and saying out of their own mouth, I think this is what I would need to learn to solve that problem. Because once you know that, you can't sell to someone based on what you think they want and need. You got to sell it to them based on what they have already come to a realization. And kind of like what you're talking about, when the conversation starts, they might be completely unconscious of that problem. And that's why they need coaching to find it. Or they may be kind of consciously aware of it. But what they were really hoping to do was like grow their following and do some sexier stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's like even though they know they need to like close the sale, they're kind of hoping there was some other way they could redo their graphic or their Instagram bio or something else. And so you really needed them to say out of their own mouth, I really need to learn this, because then now we have the bridge to show them the program.
All right. So I'm going to comment on a couple of things for the listener because there's so much good stuff in what Josh just did. And so I feel like I just hear everything about Josh is you hear his training as a life coach. And, I'm picking this up from like, I'm applying my own lens to this, which comes from my background in neurolinguistic programming, where we learn that everybody has the resources they need within themselves. They just need access to the resources. So we teach in NLP that your job is to not fix anybody. Nobody's broken, that there's this idea that when you're going through an NLP process with somebody, you're the guide. You're not the solution solver. You're not pointing out all the things that are wrong. You're just guiding, and they're doing the work. And so just like in a sales conversation, what Josh just broke down is that, and I think these were your words, they figure out what their real problem is because Josh knows how to ask the right questions. And because he can ask the right questions, they come to that realization of what the problem is and what the solution is. And then Josh has the opportunity to put a solution in front of them that feels so specific to them that it's an easier yes for them, because it's like, finally, I have found somebody who understands my problem. But really, he helped them understand their own problem and offered a solution to that problem based on the solution they said they want and need. So it's so powerful. I love what you shared. Thank you so much. This was incredible. And I want to ask you a couple other questions so people can get to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're kind of an open book. At least that's my impression of you, that you don't hold a lot back. So here's my first question for the listener to get to know Josh a little bit more. What is your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, good question.
I'm so interested to hear your answer to this.
Pleasure is chick flicks. It's chick flicks. I love. Like I love. And so two things. One, when I was a junior in high school, we moved away from the town that I grew up in, Wichita, Kansas, which was, it's not a big city. It's a small city, but it is a city.
Yeah.
It's like, 300,000 people. We moved from there to a tiny little town in Missouri that was like so completely, it was such culture shock. So like my junior and senior year kind of went through a little bit of like a crisis where we moved there to start a church and it ended up not working out. We ended up like losing everything in the process.
Oh my
gosh. I had this like crazy mental breakdown where because of, I was brought up very extreme religion. I always like to mention along with that I'm not anti-religion, but the specific way I grew up was just like so extreme that I thought when you have crisis, because this is what I had seen my parents do and my church do, it meant you needed to lock yourself in a room and pray and read your Bible for like 8 hours a day. And that, if you did that, like there would be some type of a, I don't know, weird breakthrough. It's really weird to even say out loud now. Like, what are we even talking about?
Yeah.
So I had this really bad identity crisis because I literally lost my whole self in moving to a new town, but then also the failures, but then also deciding that I needed to take on this like crazy like lifestyle of being the 17-year-old who, when he got out of school, went home and read his Bible for like 6 hours instead of like hanging out with people. Mm-hmm. So I missed out on literally my whole junior, senior, and most of like my 19-year-old life. I got married really, really, really young. And I actually got divorced after like 14 years. So that was a pretty long marriage before I got remarried. And so like, I have this kind of like obsession with chick flicks, watching people fall in love, because I feel like I missed a season of that in my life. And my first marriage was like not happy at all. Yeah. So like I've always been like, oh my God, there's these two people that found each other and they love each other and it's perfect. And and I didn't get that the first time around, or so like I kind of have this crazy obsession. Thankfully, now I'm like the most happily married person in the world. And now I watch those chick flicks with my wife, if you see me, I catch myself doing it, Nick, and you probably kind of see it in my face. When I'm watching chick flicks, I sit there with this cheesy smile on my face because I am just like so happy that these two people, like that destiny, like brought them together and their whole, and I just sit there with like this big grin on my face through like the whole movie. So that's my guilty pleasure.
I love that. And I know
because like 7 layers deeper that you didn't even ask me about. You figured out by now that's just what I do, right?
I feel like you're just so like, this is you. I love that you don't play I always say I don't either. I don't play my cards close to my vest, right? It's like, this is me. Like, this is just it. So I love that about you. All right. What's one thing you might have felt like you answered this? What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
I love chick flicks.
You love chick flicks.
No, well, I don't think people would be surprised to know about like the religious background because I talk about it a lot. Like in my
I've heard you talk about it.
But one thing people would be surprised. Well, I mean, I guess, you see 2 guitars in the background. I played music. I learned drums when I was 15. I played 3 different instruments. Moved to Missouri. They already had a drummer at their church. So, I was being in the church world. So I learned the bass guitar. And then I really wanted to learn how to like write more music. I was actually already writing a lot of melodies and stuff, but you can't like really play the drums. It's like, it just like didn't sound good to play the drums and sing. So I learned the guitar because I wanted to like actually write songs.
Yeah.
So I played the drums in a lot of bands in my early 20s, meanwhile, like writing music in the background. In the last band that I was in for like 3 years, I was the songwriter, the singer, the guitar player, the band manager. Like we toured for a couple of years. So I kind of like got my, some of my entrepreneurial experience, at least of stepping out of the comfort zone and doing stuff that you have no idea what you're doing, from that last band where I basically kind of like managed it. And I always say like, that's why it's important to follow the path of growth, because even though I ended up not deciding to do music for the rest of my life, stepping out to start that band where I was writing all the music and singing and doing all these things was what led me to eventually becoming a life coach and starting my own business. So it didn't matter that like music wasn't the right path or my actual destiny. It only mattered that it got me a step closer to doing the thing that I would do next.
I love that answer. Oh my gosh. Thanks for sharing. That was fun to hear. All right. What's something exciting going on in your business right now?
Well, I mean, I mentioned the 626 a couple times. It was a program that I just reserved for people that went through my life coach certification on the back side of it. So you do the life coach certification and then you do this program. And then I think, like I mentioned earlier, I just had so many people that came from other trainings that I had done before around business that were like, dude, if you would have taught me this stuff back then, like I would have made a lot more sales. And I was just like, oh, so maybe some of this is like smart stuff. Like to me, sales is just so easy. Like, why does anybody need to know what to say? I'm just a curious person by nature, and I'm a creative person by nature. So life coaching, even though, as you can probably tell from listening to this podcast, I tend to be the talkative one, not the listener. It's still a fun, creative game for me to be like, let's just ask some questions and see where this goes. This is like a puzzle. You know what I mean? Like, I want to like get down to the bottom of this. So I didn't think like my sales techniques were anything like different. I just thought it was how normal people talked to people. And so the 626 program is like a really cool thing. It's all sales and marketing, which is something I've never, ever done before. Before this, it was all mindset, leadership with some sales and marketing sprinkled. And now it's the opposite. Now it's almost all sales and marketing. And then I threw some of my master coaches from my life coach certification. We have a master coach program where you get certified and then spend another 3 months diving deeper, passing some tests, proving that you really know what you're doing. And we mix some of them in the program as well to do more of the mindset stuff. So I'm actually pulling away from all the mindset stuff because once I started having conversations like what we're having today, Nikki, I was like, I just want to talk about this. Like, this is what I wanted, because it's still life coaching. It's still mindset, but it's a little bit more of like a strategic puzzle that we're putting together. So it feels like songwriting is what it feels like to me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like teaching sales feels a little more like, it's not like, what are we going to do next? Like, we're just going to figure it out. We're going to go with it and we're going to see where that goes. Like, we don't have a destination. We're just putting some chords and some words together. Maybe it turns into a cool song. Maybe I throw it away when it's done. I don't know.
I love it. Okay. Last question for you today is, how can people listening right now connect with you? What's the best way?
Well, probably to either follow me on Instagram or just to head over to my website and grab some of the free stuff that I have. If you go to joshcoates.com, I do have a new book that came out that is way less sales and strategy. It's way more mindset. There's, of course, some sales stuff mixed in, but it's called The Best Version of You. And it's kind of more of like a prequel to all of the things that I had to learn as far as personal growth goes, to be someone who is capable of doing the sales and marketing side. So I will say, like, I will never stop preaching mindset because it is the foundation that you build the house on. And one of the reasons I can go into a sales conversation with zero strings attached is because I built up my mindset and my self-esteem to a place where I don't need anyone else's confirmation that I'm good or worthy or successful. So like, if you don't have that at your base, right, you're going to try to implement what me and Nikki say to do, but you're going to have so much wrapped around what this person says as meaning something about you, it will be almost impossible to truly go in with no strings attached. So you can go to my website, grab a free copy of my book. Every copy comes signed. And I have a couple other free gifts on there that you can just like check out, snag while you're there.
Yeah. So go check it out. All this information is going to be in the show notes for Josh. Josh, thank you so much for being here. This was such a pleasure to have this conversation.
You're so welcome. I'm going to steal your structure, by the way.
Okay, good. I want you to.
When I interview people, I'm going to take some of the, that was so fun.
I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad
you guys
liked it.
want to hear something cool? Nikki practices what she preaches because the whole structure of the podcast was built around intentional questions to pull things out. Nikki just life coached me. And you guys, if you weren't paying attention, you didn't notice that. But that's literally, even to get down to what I needed to teach you guys today, she just used questions to coach me and to pull out of me what you guys would need instead of just being like, oh, hey, just like teach something random. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And we got to get you on my show, okay?
Okay. All right. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time and your attention. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.